Good to be with you, even if the width and the sense of presence is in these words that are continuing to come. This is like the visual of us being together, which is very awesome. And we've gotten lots of responses. Well, it's the top of the hour, and so friends, let's just go ahead and get started. I've got a lot of things to talk about today. Let's just talk for a minute. So Oh, why don't we take a big deep breath? You know, the breathing prayer is the best prayer there is. So taking everything in and sighing on the way out. And I know you can't hear each other, but go ahead, and an audible sigh is a really good thing. So let's breathe in, sigh on the way out. So greetings, friends. My name is Dr. Marcia McFee. I am the creator and the visionary of the Worship Design Studio. I want to thank the Practical Resources Center for co-hosting this today, for us using their platform, their Zoom platform, just a really great help in so many ways. And so from both of us, from both organizations, I want to welcome you. We have many folks who have studied with me on, and many more who are associated with the Practical Resource Center, and others who just found us on Facebook and decided to check it out. And so we have probably a lot of people who are not familiar with my teaching, even though I've been doing it for 25 years. But let me tell you just a little bit more about me so you can kind of get grounded in where I come from. I was born into the United Methodist Church, but I've been a member of many churches since then, based on where I have lived, and I've lived in a lot of places. And so I consider myself polyamorous denominationally. I am in love with the dance of form and freedom in our ritualizing, in our worship, and I am in love with the way that different denominations do that. And within different denominations, people do that in vastly different ways, and I'm eminently fascinated with that. I had a first career in professional dance and musical theater in New York City. Half of that decade was on the road with the Dave Brubeck Jazz Quartet in a dance and jazz collaboration. And so I love jazz and improvisation. And believe me, we're doing a lot of improv, right? These days. I left that career to follow a call to ministry and worship in the arts. So I went to seminary at St. Paul School of Theology in Kansas City. And then I did a PhD where I combined ritual studies and ethics. And some people say, what? Worship and ethics? What do they have to do with each other? Well, I believe that what we do in worship actually matters for who we are becoming in the world, who we are outside of the worship experiences. And so we are trying on what it means to be the kingdom of God, the people of God, so that we might go and do likewise in the world. And so I believe what we do in worship is so vitally important. In my PhD, I researched in the fields of science and neuroscience and cognitive science and kinesiology. I'm really, really fascinated with why humans have always been drawn to ritualize, to symbolize, to make meaning, and it's been research that has helped me understand why we need to be sensory rich and artful and full of storytelling and story dwelling in our worship. So I've done 25 years now of this teaching ministry, keynoting worship in denominational meetings, that kind of thing, and then over 10 years of doing Worship Design Studio, which has been an online way of resourcing churches with educational resources and worship. I am also a professor of worship at the San Francisco Theological Seminary, which is part of the University of Redlands. And that's why I'm in my RV. I'm usually up in San Francisco area, but I'm in my RV in Palm Springs for the semester doing research and development for new degrees in spiritual entrepreneurship, which includes ritual arts, includes worship. So I'm very excited about this endeavor. I have 3 books, 2 on worship and 1 on skiing as spiritual practice. So I love skiing. I lived in Tahoe for 11 years, but most of my writing now is for the Worship Design Studio in these educational resources and actual worship scripts and series to help you do your job better. And I am so very honored to be in ministry with so many people. I know that what you do, pastors that are on, pastors, you wear so many hats, and only one of them is worship. And so if I can help you and help make your job easier and support you and be your cheerleader, then that is my call to ministry. So welcome to all of you. I know that each one of you are here because you care deeply about your congregations. And you're doing everything you can to be present in this strange and difficult time. So I want to tell you a story about Sunday. I was, doing my usual, seeing what people are doing online. Um, and I saw an old mentor of mine who was a youth leader when I was in Methodist Youth Fellowship, NYF, in my teenage years. And she was really important to me. And she later became a pastor and, of course, has some country churches now that she is pastoring. And she's had some difficult times lately in her own life, rounds of chemo, and then after finishing that, then having the loss of her daughter and grandchild in an auto accident, and so is now caring for her other grandchild. And that grandchild was on with her, and she had set up her phone, propped it up on something. She had set herself in a place where her wall, where she has all these crosses on it, was. And so she had been intentional about choosing a place to be. She was intentional about having her grandson help her with the liturgical responses. And she was paying attention to who was in the chat, and she was calling them by name, and she was praying for them by name. And it was low tech, and it wasn't fancy, but it was authentic, and she was with those people. She was present, like as if there was nothing left to lose. And that's really where we are. And that's really all people want, is for us to be present in that way. And so, my friends, whatever you're doing, and thank you for what you're doing, it is making a very big difference in people's lives, in their overall health, in their connectivity, in their ability to cope in this moment. So you have turned on a dime. If you don't know me as well, you don't know that I cry at the drop of a hat. So I'm verklempt, but for good reason at the moment, because I'm so grateful to you. You have turned on a dime. You have learned about technology that you never wanted to know, maybe in your lifetime, and you've done it in a short amount of time. You have been through trial and error, and you have been through try again. And no matter the production quality that you're doing and what you're capable of, and folks are doing so many different things, but no matter how fancy or basic your efforts are, you are rocking it. Because what matters is that you're doing it, your creativity and your imagination, as well as just your simple connecting with people, is inspirational. Keep doing it. And if I can be of help, I am so glad to be of help. So I've done a webinar every week for the last 3 weeks, and your willingness to go for it is awesome. So thank you. Thank you. So you are bringing well-loved spaces into the homes of your folks. Have been, many of you, broadcasting either Facebook Live or Zoom or pre-recorded from your sanctuaries. And you have been giving people a needed sense of rhythm and place and space, that beloved places. And this need will just continue to multiply as we get further into the weeks of isolation that it will seriously take to slow the positive cases of this virus. So people are not merely inconvenienced, they're worried for their livelihoods and for their lives and the lives of their loved ones. We all are. And so know that what you're doing, no matter what you're doing, I just want you, let's take another breath, and I want you to breathe out the anxiety about the performance anxiety, because you are enough. So let's do it. Whatever you're doing, you're enough. You're enough. I just watched a Brene Brown, or not watched it, listened to a podcast. She started up a podcast again, and her first one, you have to listen to it if you haven't. She was talking about FFTs, and I won't use the word she used, but she was talking about freaking first times. And we're all in that, right? We've never been through a global pandemic before, this generation, this configure of people. And many of us have not ever done this kind of specific online worship before. Even if you've live streamed before, you haven't done it in this way. And so grace abounds. And we're all going to feel some level of anxiety, but we can understand that this is a first time. And so actually the butterflies and the anxiety we're feeling is absolutely normal. So friends, another FFT may come along, and that is that we'll have to move out of our sanctuaries and do this from our homes, and some of you are already doing that. It may not be advisable to live stream from our beloved worship spaces, and so we may have to take some of what is in that space and recreate it in our homes. This is the space, the worship space of a worship design studio congregation, and it's set up for the Lent series that many of our churches are doing right now that I created for this year, called Entering the Passion of Jesus, picturing ourselves in the story. And so there's these frames, and they look out on this beautiful scene. But it may come to pass, maybe even as soon as this week, that we'll have to do this not in our sanctuaries, because it will just be so necessary for us to be staying as much as possible away from other people. Or you may be doing it with one camera person, or you may be the camera person in that space and be the only one there. But whatever it is, you will take some of the things from your sacred space and take them to your home and set up a scene, set up a scenario, create a backdrop, like my friend did with choosing a wall that had all the crosses on it, or bringing some of the things that you have, the candle maybe, or even the cross, to your space so that something familiar from your space is in the shot. You will become adept at creating your own camera shots and figuring out how to move the camera and all that kind of thing. So we just keep improvising as we go along. I am going to share many things with you today. I am going to share some examples of things that I've put together for you for free download. And if you have the wherewithal or the resources to donate for these, that's wonderful, but it's not expected. But at worshipdesignstudio.com/Easter 2020, we have uploaded several things for you to download. And I'm not going to I am going to talk through these things, but not so specific. I want them to be they're ways for me to tell you some of the things that I have done online or how we could do it. And it may spark you to your own creativity, right? So I'm not saying I want you specifically, all of you, to use these things. I'd love it if you did, and it may take some pressure off of you, and it may give you some fodder and allow you to actually, what I want you to be able to do is do the pastoral care that you need to be doing without spending all of your time trying to figure out worship. So if you want to use those, terrific. What they are is, many of you may have downloaded already, the Comfort Food Feast of Love. And that is just some ritual around sharing a meal together. It could be any time, any Sunday. It could even be not Sunday. It could be just in the evening where you want to draw your people together. So however you want to use that. Poured Out Elements of a Resurrection, and I'll speak more about this in a moment. All of these is 6 characters, dramatic monologues, 6 characters who were with Jesus in that last week, and could easily be done online, Zoom, live stream, any of that. Holy Week Pilgrimage, Stations of the Cross. I'll be talking about that, but that's about creating a stational liturgy, stational moving around. And so whether you do that and you just take your phone, you create the stations and take your phone and record those as you go and create a virtual one, or whether you set them up around your church and allow people to come with lots of distance and no interactive kinds of stations, right? Because we don't want people touching things, but they could walk from one to another and have that open for hours, just have it set up for Holy Week or for the Triduum, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, that kind of thing. So that's another one. We'll talk about that. And then Heart of the Matter is an Easter season series that I am creating right now specifically for online worship in this time. And it is based on Revised Common Lectionary Year A. So whether you follow the lectionary or not, that would work for your setting. So those are some of the things that you can download right now. You could go there as we're talking if you want to and take a look at them, or afterwards. But I'm going to use them as some examples for what we're doing. So let's just check in and see how we're doing. Let's check in and see what's happening here. We've still got hopeful as the main thing, and I'm so very grateful, because that is We are an Easter people, and that's what we're going to be talking about, is that we are Easter people, and that the Easter season is not just a day, it's a season. And in fact, what we know in our liturgical history is that from very, very early on, the earliest Christians were saying that that every Sunday, even in Lent, is a little Easter, right? That's why the 40 days computation in Lent does not include Sundays, because every Sunday is a little Easter, and we are an Easter people, and that means that we are in all of the feels that we're feeling. Hopefully, hopefully, the hopeful feeling is there, because that's what we are offered by the creator of all that is, the Holy Comforter. All right, wonderful. Yeah, more and more people are coming on and adding to this, and I'm so very grateful that you're here. Let's ask some more questions. So this is going to be another what online technology are you using for worship? Let's just see what people are doing. And this is another word thing. So you can just, there's a link on there that says go to another question. It's down below. Once you've entered your question to your answers to the last question, you enter in a new code 289896, and just type in there what online platform are you using, and we'll see what people are using. Great. Wonderful. Yeah, some even the technologies that you're using to to edit things is great. And the services, the streaming services, we can see all kinds of things. Yeah, and the email programs that you can communicate with folks on. Some of you may be using freeconferencepro.com, just doing phone, conference calls, which is awesome. Hyperlinks with your emails, that's great. Your church website, webinars, photo apps, fabulous. Just written kinds of things. Switcher Studio, yeah, from everything from very basic to more complex. This is fantastic. And maybe some of you are seeing some words you don't recognize and you're writing them down. Oh, let me find out more about that. But again, it's not about spending all of your time figuring out the technology, but also just landing on one and then creating content or using content from us. So Facebook Live seems to be the biggest one, but YouTube is close behind. Yeah, great. Awesome. All right, let's do another question, folks. The next question that I'd love to know, and I hope you're seeing, you could use this mentimeter.com. This is free, and it was super easy to set up. That's why I'm showing you the innards here of how I'm doing this. So let's do this question, and that is, what is your usual Holy Week worship schedule? So you're going to hit that refresh again, that link to go and enter a new code 26684. And put in there, you can choose 1, 2, or 3, just all the things that apply. And this is going to be a bar graph. So we're going to see this is your usual Holy Week worship schedule, not what you are thinking about doing this time. But let's just see how this comes out. Ooh, we've got more Easter vigils already than I thought we would have. That's awesome. So those of you who are going, what's an Easter vigil? It's coming back into Protestant use. And it is a Saturday, Holy Saturday service that is a service of light, word, water, and meal table. Beautiful, ancient. We're reclaiming our ancient roots here with the early church and the Easter Vigil. So Maundy Thursday has the most so far, and then Good Friday, and then Easter Vigil. And I'm guessing that a lot of you have both Maundy Thursday, Good Friday there. So yeah, okay, this is really interesting. I love this. And what a great way, so many people on, what a great way to sort of crowdsource with each other and see what our practices are. So we're going to talk about something for all of these in our time together. Okay, great. Woo! We'll come back and see the final results here in just a little bit. All right, so what I want to do, I'm going to start with Holy Week and give you some ideas in 3 different categories. One is worship with ritual action, so actually having an online worship at a specific time. or pre-recorded, but shown at a specific time so that people are doing this together, and that it has some ritual action attached to it that people are doing at home, right? So you're as a leader, you're modeling it as you lead it, but people are also being able to do that at home. Some prayer station kinds of ideas, setting things up, and then inviting people to either come or taking them on a virtual prayer station journey, but also pilgrimage, and that is, even making a pilgrimage to the church. And I'll give you an example of an idea that a friend of mine and I are thinking about in terms of keeping vigil with a pilgrimage, sort of a drive-by pilgrimage that people could come to the church just as a way of putting themselves there, but it's a drive-by kind of thing. So these three different kinds of categories is what I want to talk about. So let's talk about worship with ritual action. As an example, what in the downloads that you can download and see is my Holy Week experience called Poured Out, Elements of a Resurrection. And there are 6 characters, people who were in the story with Jesus in that last week of his life, and they're monologues. And so let me just go through these. Mary, the friend of Jesus, it gets the anointing of his feet with oil. And as a ritual action response to this monologue, so there's scripture reading and monologue. And then what you would do is you would have people, they would have prepared a little vial of a little bowl with some oil in it, maybe some essential oils or olive oil, cooking oil, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. A little dab will do you, as you all know. But people could anoint one another on the forehead, and that's part of that ritual. If you have people, and I know there are a lot of people who are living alone, and they are alone, and so one of the things you always want to do in this kind of invitation is not assume that everybody has somebody to anoint, but maybe even say to them, as you anoint, put that sign of the cross on your forehead. I'm going to do this and know that I am with you, and that virtually my touch is anointing you through your touch. So always connecting people and not assuming people have somebody there, and just naming situations. Just think of all you will know, because you know your people, and you know who is alone, and you know who has family, and you know who has multiple generations gathered because they've sprung the grandparents out of the assisted living to come be with them during this time. And so Simon Peter is the second one, a monologue about his disbelief at Jesus washing his feet. And then there is a hand washing ritual. And I think, having people wash each other's hands or wash their own hands, and literally reframing this hand washing thing that we're all doing so much into that, connecting it. In cognitive science, we know that when we connect this story with this action, this mundane with the sacred, then you never see the mundane the same way again. And you never see the sacred the same way again. And so hand washing, we'll never experience that the same way again after this. And if we incorporate that, even when we're back together, incorporate foot washing, hand washing, we'll always have this time sealed in our minds. Those things will connect. Judas is the next one. There's a monologue about Judas, and he realizes in the midst of, he's like complaining about the people that Jesus has invited to the table all along, and how he's just like, Jesus, why do you invite all these people? And then he realizes in that moment that Jesus is breaking bread with him, knowing about the betrayal, that he himself is one of those people that those questionable people that Jesus has invited to his table. It's a powerful moment in that monologue. And then there's communion after that, and there's some communion liturgy. And, different denominations feel differently about offering communion online. And so if you need to take my comfort food liturgy, which sort of helps us to reframe that, if you need to insert that in that spot, that's fine as well. You all have to make your own decisions around that. So the centurion, the soldier, is a monologue, and it's this transformation moment of saying, I'll never be able to do a crucifixion again without thinking of this, and maybe I won't be able to participate in crucifixions anymore anyway. And so focusing on being there, and being there for each other, and being there in times of strife and being present. And so the song Were You There happens then. And all of this, I hope you're imagining that all of this, you could be on Zoom, you could have these 6 characters, you could have them all as the panelists, and they could come on when it's their time to read the monologues. You could pre-record them and play them and have that in your, just like I'm doing right now. I'm using Keynote for Mac, but you could use PowerPoint or whatever you use, and I'm sharing that with you. And you could pre-record those monologues and then play them at the right time. So many, many different ways to do this and bring that story alive. Mary, the mother of Jesus, does a monologue about the tears. And when I have done this live, I have used Eric Clapton's Tears in Heaven as just a time for people to be praying and lamenting. And certainly that's appropriate in this time as well. Salome's, the 6th one, and hers is about she will be going to the tomb, and she keeps her lamp lit in this time. And so having candles for people, inviting them beforehand, and I've on a sheet in those scripts, I have said these are the things people would need to get and have at their tables. And having candles, I'm a candleaholic, so the more the merrier, right? So having people get candles, as many candles, have things lit, invite them to actually have their lights lowered for this. So you want them to create sacred space where they are, but also have some unlit ones that they could light at this moment at Salome's invitation. Creating ritual responses is part of our DNA. Some of the things that I have done at the end of this when we're keeping vigil is to show pictures of sometimes of famous things that we lament or tragedies, and just to evoke that sense of memorial and connect that to the Holy Week, the Good Friday story. So that's something you could do, is to collect. I have in the past collected pictures of candlelight vigils. Of course, we can't gather to do a candlelight vigil, but showing pictures, this is the thing about neuroscience that I find absolutely fascinating, and that is that we can evoke the same sense in our brain. We can evoke memories. If we've been at a candlelight vigil, just seeing a picture of a candlelight vigil will call that to mind. And so we can really rely on these fascinating things called our brains and our memories, and that will help us to be truly present to one another. So invite people to create sacred space with lighting and objects, so some preparation. Have an on-camera version of the actions and objects so that you're doing it with, especially those who are at home alone, so that they feel like they have a partner, a visual partner in doing that. And then for all of our scripts, permission to use, to adapt, to interpret, to improvise, to do whatever you want to. And so this is just a little screenshot of some of the things to prepare, and something you could send out to your folks to prepare for this kind of thing. So whether you do the poured out things or not, but creating a worship service where people are actually doing, if it's a Tenebrae service, right? Invite people, say, between now and Tenebrae, see if you can put your hands on X many number of candles, light them, and then you can have them blow it out one at a time, right where they are. But how can you create for them the actions and the symbols and the visuals right where they are, even as you do that? And I think it will be deeply, deeply appreciated and meaningful for folks. All right, so let's talk about prayer stations. Prayer stations are a very ancient kind of tradition, and it's something that we can do wherever we are. I'm going to show you some pictures of some prayer stations that I created at a church that I consulted with a couple of summers ago. And they had this huge property. You don't have to have a huge property to do it, but the point was they weren't quite sure what to do with their property. Lots of nature, lots of these hidden paths. In fact, the hidden path you're looking at right now was one that they had forgotten was there. And of course, as I was conceiving of all this, I was going to every corner of their property and looking at stuff. And this was behind a little pond they had, and kind of the entrance to it was a little overgrown. This awesome path. So we hung clothesline and had kids draw on stuff on these, pre-printed scripture passages, and we hung those up and created this little walking path. And so what do you have on your property or in your wherever you can, have permission to create some prayer stations. How could you create something that would be a come and go, not too many people at a time kind of experience that really goes along with people getting outside and having an experience, something that they can do? So let's just take a look at some more things. This was very interactive. You cannot do interactive things like ask people to pick up a tongue suppressor out of a pile of tongue suppressors and leave their germs there. You just can't do it in this time. But you could actually have things set up so people could, little prompts that people could just experience them. And you would want to remind them not to touch stuff, right? We had take a pebble out of water. That also is a little dicey in this time, but you could have pebbles, for people, something for people to take if you had them spread out far enough that people are, and a little sign that says only touch the one that you're going to take. Just thinking logically through this, if you're going to be putting people in similar spaces, even if they're spread apart. Blowing bubbles, again, these are just ideas. These are the things we did at the time, but you would have to adapt. Rocks, writing on rocks, leaving messages, that kind of thing. We had prayer beads. That also is difficult when we just don't want people to touch stuff, but you could have some people, how fun would this be, making prayer beads and then laying them out for people to take. Again, don't touch anyone except the one you're taking, kind of thing, with a little you can see how to, or whatever each bead represents, and people could take that home and pray that. Now, here's something that I created for these prayer stations, and that was you see the 4 pages here separately, but it was what's the dimensions? Large piece of paper, larger than legal. Anyway, when you fold it, it has 4 8.5 by 11 sizes. Surfaces. And so I created this, and there was a little bit about each station and then a little place for people to journal on their own. And so you could have that for people to print out at home and bring with them. What you're going to listen to right now.
Taking journeys and making altars out in the world is as old as humanity itself.
I made an audio track.
Humans began to make meaning out of the ordinary places and objects of creation around us. This helped us find ways to be connected to God and to each other. And so I pray many blessings on your journey. Your first stop will be in the outdoor chapel down by the pond. Go ahead and go there now.
So I created this audio and uploaded it just as an audio file and a link on the church's webpage. So you could literally just take your phone and your earbuds, plugs, whatever, and click on that, and then have this audio guide for each station. And it was
the song
really
Tie a Yellow Ribbon Round the Old
fun.
Oak Tree became a big hit decades ago. But the tradition of yellow ribbons started long before that, and is a symbol in other countries as well as ours. Canada used yellow ribbons as a sign of help to Americans after 9/11. Australia used yellow ribbons in protest around ancient trees that were going to be destroyed. Yellow ribbons have been a sign of waiting for a loved one who is away at war or imprisoned. No matter how they've been used, yellow ribbons are a sign of hospitality, welcome, unconditional love, and support. Jesus' life was full of these attributes, and so the cross is draped in yellow ribbons at the outdoor chapel. You are invited to take a yellow ribbon from the cross and tie it on one of the trees as a sign of your commitment to support those who need it most in your life and in the world. Then take a moment and sit on the benches and listen to this song called You Are Loved. Know that this is what Christ says to you every day, and calls us to say it to others as well.
So, of course, you wouldn't be having people take yellow ribbons off and tie it on the tree, but you could invite people to go home and if they had some yellow fabric or even that caution tape or whatever it is, or any color, find something to tie at home, right? So again, this is just an example. You can create your own prayer stations based on your metaphors. So here's what I call this. I've written about this in my book, Think Like a Filmmaker. You are metaphoragers, right? I want you to do some metaphoraging. And if creating a prayer walk that people could do during Holy Week or the Triduum or Holy Easter Vigil or whenever you want to, or even Easter, right? Do some metaphoraging. What are the places, what are the stations you would do? How would you create that?
You are fragile, you are tough.
Hold on. Okay. So you get the idea. Now, I went with a friend of mine around their property to do this very same thing. What prayer stations could there be? You might have a labyrinth on your property. They have a preschool, so there might be a station where you pray for children, right? Something about children. They have a farm fresh produce place that grows and gives free food to those in need. And so you might have prayers for the earth or prayers for farmers or prayers for whatever. You see how I'm metaphoraging. I'm foraging for metaphors. They have this sign on the side of their building. So you could pray for peace, pray for people in other parts of the world. So many things you could do. If you have a fountain, a water feature on your property, you could have a stop there where you're praying for new life and for a refreshing, cleansing spirit or whatever it is, or touch the water and remember your baptism. That would be okay to touch, right? So here's what I want to show you. And this is from a worship design studio church as well that's doing my Entering the Passion, Picturing Yourself in the Story. And this was their Sunday worship that they did. They pre-recorded, and then what I'm going to show you is some camera work they did for what I call the threshold moment, the beginning of worship, setting the context. And it's not super high tech, right? In fact, this is Dottie and her son. Actually, this is Evan, who was a student of mine at SFTS. But Dottie's son Nathaniel's the one who edited these things together and did a wonderful job. But of course, you'll see he forgot to make the phone recording landscape. And so he's going to change that for next time. But, regardless, people are so appreciative. So let me just show you a little bit of this. And again, it's low tech, but it's absolutely fine.
We hope that you find this time of prayer, reflection, and music meaningful during this difficult time in our world. Come, enter the story, the place you belong in your story, and the story of Jesus. We are exploring the events of the last week of Jesus' life, from Palm Sunday to Good Friday, the week we call Holy. The sanctuary invites us to see ourselves in this story. We can step into a frame and into that same place and time as we hear the events of Jesus' life. But we also step into our story, for the two stories intersect. Holy Week was filled with dramatic changes. Our world is undergoing dramatic changes. Each day, each hour brings something new. There is so much. There is so much. So come, take a breath, spend some time in worship and reflection. Enter the story, our story, Jesus' passion, our passion. For it is the story of God's saving presence in a rapidly changing world, a story we need to hear. Come and enter the story.
So, well done, right? So again, not fancy. It's not a television broadcast quality, and it doesn't need to be, because it's their sanctuary, it's their space, it's the things that they are connected to, and that is more important than anything else. So I actually asked Nathaniel to tell me, like what he used. So this is a little bit of technical information. He's using some more expensive pieces of software, but he's also saying you can do the same thing for free if you have a Mac, GarageBand, and iMovie. There are PC equivalents to that. Everything was filmed on an iPhone, and what you have here are pictures of his script, right? So they had written out a script, and so he was able to read that script, kind of sketch out some camera shots, and do what you call B-roll, right? Which is taking some beautiful shots, some moving shots, some still shots, and then able to, we don't always want to look at a talking head. When we're in the sanctuary, we're in the pews, we don't always focus on the person who is talking, right? Our eyes wander. And so it's the same thing with being online and live streaming or pre-recording. We don't always have to see the person who's speaking. Now, if you have people reading lips, that's different. You might want to do a frame within a frame, keeping that in mind. But for the most part, we don't always have to have the talking head in front of us in order to communicate, and actually the visuals help us, as you just saw. So I want to thank Dottie and Nathaniel and Evan for allowing us to use that. So this was the last picture that I took at this friend's church, Karen Clark Ristine's church at Claremont United Methodist Church. And you might remember this scenario. It went viral over Advent. They had, and in this very spot, they had, which is in the front of their church near a road, the Holy Family separated in cages, reminding us to remember families who are separated. And so you may have seen that. But here is what it looks like right now. And they are brainstorming about what to do with that. They haven't landed it specifically, but some of the things that we're talking about are creating some candles, lots of candles, maybe a big size poster of, I saw a beautiful artist rendering of Jesus holding the world kind of thing. But getting the right image. And then the wonderful thing is that they have an outer road that goes right by it, so people can just drive by. And maybe there's people there within certain hours who are lighting candles on behalf of people as they drive by, right? So where is it on your place, at your place, that you could do that? Now, this is in Brazil, where they use projectors, mighty, powerful projectors, I must say, on the big Jesus on the hill. And this is Pray Together in many, many different languages. Amazing. They did this in this time. The Opera House in Sydney, they do projections on their Opera House. But you can do this, actually. You don't have to have really powerful projectors if you have a smaller building. But if you're in within sight lines of a road, and even if you had, like, this is a loop of candles, right? And you could just put the words, and using a black background with white words is the easiest way to make it really visible, and just words of hope, right? I wouldn't say, well, my own theology says don't proselytize. This is not the moment for proselytizing, but affirmations, right? That would speak to everyone's heart, no matter who came by, no matter what faith they are, no matter whether they have faith or not. But, we're praying for you, or, have hope, or there is light. Whatever it is. So if you're visible from the road, that might be an awesome thing to do as well. So let me just stop for a moment. Jenna, do we have some chatting going on over there? Some good ideas happening?
We certainly do. We've gotten a lot of questions so far.
Okay.
Yeah, it's happening.
Awesome. So I'm going to stay with Holy Week for a little while. Jenna, do you think we can just hold questions until I get done with Holy Week and just focus on Holy Week questions?
That's a great idea.
Okay, awesome. All right, keep it coming, folks. All right, so let's talk about stations, right? So Holy Week Pilgrimage Stations of the Cross is another free resource that we have there for you that you may have already downloaded at that worshipdesignstudio.com/Easter 2020. And this is something that okay, there we go. Originally did. This is the chapel at San Francisco Theological Seminary. I created this Stations of the Cross Holy Week service for a Lent series that I did a couple of years ago called Listen, Hearing the Still Small Voice Within. And so I have an actual full recording of this service that you can watch, and also just a 10-minute version of just the stations. And at the very least, if you just don't have the bandwidth to do anything for Holy Week, or maybe you do something on Monday, Thursday, and want something for Good Friday that you won't produce, you are so welcome to use our videos and just have people watch that if that feels right for your context. So take a look at those things, and I have links to all of those. But let me just give you a little taste of, I've kind of edited down into just a couple of minutes, a little taste of what the stations were. And so we did worship in the chapel, and then people went out through that door you see into the smaller chapel, and then we were able to wind people around on the portico outside through Stations of the Cross, and then come back in to finish at the table. And what I did was I used artwork, curated artwork that had just been collected and licensed by my dear friend Kathy Black at Claremont School of Theology, and that now resides at the Vanderbilt Digital Library, and some modern day photos to create sort of an ancient and modern day interpretation of each one of the Stations of the Cross. And so in those downloadable materials, you have the artwork, you have the signs that we used. I think it would be really powerful if you're going to do this to make the photographs actually photos of things that are happening right now. And so that would be very meaningful. So let me just play for you a little example here of what this is.
they crucified my love.
So, friends, that was just a little sample of those stations. And one of the things that I think is so important for Holy Week any year, but maybe even more specifically this year, and that is that we remember it's not just an ancient story, the story of persecution, the story of grief, the story of loss, the story of tragedy. It's an ongoing story. And when we connect our faith story with our life story, when those things intersect, that is where we make meaning. And so this could be one way of doing that. So what you're seeing right now on the slide is just some of the resources that you will find when you download this particular experience. And there were a couple of songs that my music collaborator and I created called Meet Me Here and Come and Rest. And so the scores are there. Please feel free to use these things. You have my permission to live stream, to do whatever, to adapt these things. It would be nice if, just people could get back to the original resources. So whenever you put these online in the description, whether it's YouTube or Facebook Live or whatever, I would appreciate just a note that you adapted these from worshipdesignstudio.com /Easter 2020, or you can go do /series so that people know where they can get resources as well. That's what I'm most concerned about, is just resourcing more people. So I want you to use these in whatever way is helpful for you. Or like I said, just use them as inspiration for your own creation of what you will do for this time. So pilgrimage is a very, very historical part of Holy Week. I have something called The Journey with Egeria that I did not upload for you because I think it's a little more complicated, and I don't want you to get into too much complication. But the idea of pilgrimage, The Journey with Egeria. Egeria was a 4th century pilgrim, and it's one of our most beloved liturgical texts from the 4th century because she was writing to her sisters back home in Gaul about her pilgrimage to Jerusalem for Holy Week. And she writes in great detail about things that were going on in Jerusalem in the 4th century during Holy Week. And so every year I do a planning retreat in the summer where churches come to plan out the year and make plans, and we do the Journey with Egeria. This year we were in Oklahoma City for that retreat. I move it around all the time, and I got to do one of the things that I have wanted to do for a very long time, and that is to do a pilgrimage, a Holy Week pilgrimage at the memorial site in Oklahoma City where the bombing occurred. And so these are just some photos from that pilgrimage. Of course, getting groups of people together like we did and walking from station to station is not possible in this time. But if you live in a place where there is a memorial of some kind or something that you could metaphorage and connect the ancient story and the modern day story, then think about what you might do. This is a picture of people. They were going to the next station after being at the first one, and then this is something that was spray painted on the wall at the time of the recovery and process, and we search for the truth, we seek justice, it says. And so we stopped there to sing How Long, O Lord, and how can you take different places? This was the survivor tree, the only tree that survived the blast, and now it's grown into this beautiful place, and we did communion underneath that tree. The choir sang a cappella underneath that tree, and again, you would have to adapt. These are beautiful lighted seats where representing all the people who died there, and so people sat there. A lot of even local people didn't know they want you to sit on them. It's okay to touch them and sit on them, and a powerful thing to sit there and pray. So again, we have to be careful about the pilgrimages that we design and inviting people not to spread germs, but is there a way that you could create safely a place to go? We ended by singing around the shallow pool that is where the street was, and people tied ribbons onto the memorial place. So again, just the idea of pilgrimage and how might you do that? You know, we do this actually at Christmas. We do drive through the neighborhood Christmas light things, right? So take that idea and transplant it. How could you do that for Easter? I'm going to dip into Easter just for a second because I think this could be super fun. And that is messages of hope, decorations like can you create drive through your parking lot with flowers, arrangements of flowers, whatever it is, you can't do an Easter egg hunt because that's way too much touching and way too much kids running around bumping into each other. It's just not going to happen. So how can you do a drive-through thing? So let's think about the things we already know how to do, driving through neighborhoods to see Christmas lights. What can we do with that? All right. So get creative. Think about what you might do with that. Okay. So back into Holy Week. Last thing I want to do here is for the folks who are part of the Worship Design Studio, using my Entering the Passion of Jesus, picturing ourselves in the story, I had designed 2 Holy Week experiences. The first one was called First Dinner, Gratitude for Those Who Care for Our Community, which is uncanny because I wrote this in December. And this was a service based on the woman who anointed Jesus' feet. And I suggested you have it in early Holy Week and that you invite people. The whole service is about honoring healthcare professionals, first responders, people who care for the community. And I cannot even believe how ironic or serendipitous, whatever word you want to give it. So you are not going to be able to do that service in Holy Week, is my guess, that we will not be still gathering. And so save it. Save it for when you can, because those people are working super hard. They couldn't come to a worship service anyway because they're working, round the clock. But save it and do it when we can, when we get to a place where we can thank them, honor them. And I also did a Last Supper, the rest of the story, I called it. And in this series, we have had monologues as well. This series highlighted artwork from the Vanderbilt Library. And in the artwork, I chose people who were in the crowd of different scenarios during Holy Week. And I wrote monologues about those onlookers so that we could picture ourselves in that story. What if we were in the crowd at that time? And so these characters come back in this Holy Week service, and they talk about the rest of the story. Some of you are getting this because you're old enough, like me. I grew up listening to Paul Harvey in the morning in the radio show, telling the rest of the story. Getting ready for school, we would listen to that. And so these characters come back and they say, I was in that crowd at Palm Sunday, and this is what happened the rest of the week. And I couldn't, so it's from their perspective again. So same thing that I described about the poured out monologues, you could apply here to this service and have the different people with monologues. You could pre-record it, put it in your Zoom thing or Zoom to Facebook, or have people come on and do those, make them presenters, panelists, and they could come on and do it live. And all of you who are having trouble with technology and you just, you're sending out emails, send them the scripts. Let them do that at home, right? Let them read it as a personal devotion. Or if they can gather around, if there's 6 people in their household that can share parts, have them do that at home. So there are so many different ways to get it out there. I'm just throwing these ideas out there. Okay, so before we move on, I am going to stop sharing my screen for just a moment. And Jenna, I cannot imagine all the questions or comments. We'll stick to questions. And again, we're going to try to save this chat and send this chat out so that the crowdsourcing can also go to those of you who are watching the recording. So cross your fingers on that. But Jenna, what kind of questions can I address that I haven't addressed about Holy Week.
So, one of the big ones, what licenses are required for live streaming?
Yeah.
Folks wondering how to share pre-recorded music like YouTube videos, things like that.
Yeah. So I am not going to spend a ton of time on that, although it's really important, but I'm only going to say a couple of things because there are much better resources out there. And I want you to go to the Practical Resources online Facebook group that they set up called Online... Charlene, somebody, Karen.
It's called Online Church with PRC.
Thank you. Okay. Go to Online Church with PRC. They have done an incredible job of curating a ton of these kinds of answers. So live streaming license is different than your usual one license and CCLI, which are the two main ones that most people have, or licensing. You have those licenses for what you do within the walls of your sanctuary. You need an additional license in this time of broadcasting it. And if you broadcast, even when you have people in your place, you need to have this. It's a different license. It's an extra license. And so both CCLI and One License have those live streaming licenses. And One License is actually making it free for a limited time. So I want to highly recommend, and that's going to be most of your hymns in your mainline denominational hymnals. CCLI is mostly the contemporary Christian music, and so you'll need that if that's what you're using. These licenses don't cover entire hymnals, right? It's song by song basis. So you have to make sure that the publisher that has the copyright for the song is actually represented by these folks. All right. Then what you cannot do with even a live streaming license is live stream the original artist YouTube version of it. All right. So it has to be your musicians doing it. Now, if you are not broadcasting it publicly out into the world but via Facebook Live, if you have a private link that's only for your folks, that may be a little different, and that's very gray area. So I don't want to be the last word on that. Do some research on that. But I have a feeling that may be different. But there is a difference between broadcasting in a very public way where you are spreading it to all kinds of folks. Now, here's something that's happening. And I want you to go to the social media of your favorite artists. And I want you to see if they are broadcasting, doing Facebook Lives, acoustic things from their kitchens. There's a lot of people doing this. I just watched one, Mary Chapin Carpenter, Keith Urban, Indigo Girls did like over an hour. Incredible. Now, what that means is that they have broadcasted in a public way. So I am going to put money on that you could maybe send people to that or excerpt some of that. All right? Just an idea. People are putting it out there, right? People are being generous in this time. So think about that. The other thing you can do, and this is what we're doing for our Easter season series, and that is part of it is there's a song, a YouTube song highlighted in each one of the scripts, and it's a dance party. So the kids can come up and dance, or grandmas can dance in their chairs, or whatever. But we're putting the link in the script so that people can just click on the link and play it at home, right? So what you would do as a presenter, if you're doing this live, you would do that yourself, but you would mute yourself. So I would play it and I would mute myself, right? So that people can just play it at their house. And I would play it myself so that I'm actually having the experience and dancing around my living room, dancing with people who are there by themselves and encouraging them to jam down. It's good for our endorphins. It's good for our mental health. But that's the way that I can have people do that legally without me broadcasting it over the airwaves. So those are some things that I've been brainstorming and thinking about. In terms
leaving
of
people in the dark, quote unquote, on Good Friday who may have been isolated for some time. I wonder about heightened anxiety and depression right now.
Yeah.
How do we minister through our worship to those struggling with heightened depression on Good Friday?
Yeah. Name it. Name it. And the Good Friday story is the perfect story to talk about. This is a great, so I want, even though Brene Brown's podcast was about first time things. She also has some really good stuff in there about managing our emotions, feeling the feelings, but also not allowing, go there, uh, learn all you can about how to talk about anxiety and depression so that you can weave that in. And just be real. Just be real. Talk about your own, right? Now, it's always a fine line. Vulnerability is a fine line. As leaders, we want to talk about our own. We want to name it, but we also want to, the good news is always there. Good Friday is not just Good Friday because we are Easter people. We know the rest of the story, right? We know about resurrection and we believe that, right? So I think it's really important to name it. And it's a really great question, but I don't think it's a reason not to do Good Friday.
All right, another Holy Week question. We have had several folks ask about the artwork used in the prayer stations that I believe is part of an unpublished collection that's curated by Vanderbilt Divinity Library. So folks wondering about permissions to share that and the images we collected.
Yeah. So that is a good question. And here's what I would, is maybe even a better idea. The artwork is about these different places in the story, but go to Vanderbilt. Do this on your own. Go to Vanderbilt and to their lectionary collection. And I'm going to have Jenna put that in the chat. And there are, I think I put that in the notes about doing this. Go there and find your own pictures. You will find a lot of them. And you don't have to use the ones we used. We got special permission to use that in that time because they weren't yet on Vanderbilt. They were just being curated and the licensing had happened. But some things are in that collection. All of the collection is licensed for your church use. So again, anything, if you really want to be super careful and you're going to be live streaming this in the public domain, then I would choose things that are not modern art, that are actually ancient art, right? In the public domain. And so that's a really easy way. And there's tons of stuff out there, tons of stuff on the Vanderbilt website. So I would suggest that.
Is there a place where you could do online on-demand prayer stations?
I'll bet there is. I know several years ago, I found a place where you could virtually light a candle for someone. And it would actually light a digital little candle and the name of the person or the concern would be on there. And it would stay lit for like 24 hours or something. Gosh, I'd have to look back to see where that was. But I bet if we all just kind of search around and Google that, I'm guessing that there might be. Like I said, the stations, the recording of the stations is on my YouTube channel, and I have the link in the resources to that. So I would invite you to use that if you want to, if that works for your church. But I would also invite you to create your own that really would speak to your context.
All right, another big question. This is kind of a general one. How do we include folks in worship who have poor or no internet access? Yeah. Folks who are not plugged in online.
Yeah. So again, that's why I'm saying whatever you do virtually, send the scripts. Send something for people to read. Send the scripts if you're doing stations. Send the scripts. Put the pictures in that. Make PDFs that you can send out to people or deliver to their door if they're not email people. Just think about the context of everybody in your congregation and how could you make whatever it is that you are creating accessible in multiple formats. So that's what I would say to that.
Okay.
And phone, yes, phone is also great. So give them the phone number because that is something most people can do.
All right. I think that covers all the big questions for now.
Great. Okay, folks, hang in with me. This is just going to be a marathon, and that's okay. I know you'll watch the rest of it in recording if you have to go. So let's get to Easter, my friends. Easter! So let's start with we're going to do a I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to do our next poll at menti.com. So let's see what we ended up with. What is your usual Holy Week worship schedule? We ended up, so mostly Maundy, Thursday, and Good Friday, probably. Those were some of the same people. And some Easter Vigil, yay. And any of these things that I have been talking about could be done Maundy, Thursday, Good Friday, or Easter Vigil. Or you could do different things on different days. Okay, so let's do another poll. And that is, I have been hearing a lot of people, a good number of people, considering delaying their Easter service until they get in their space, back in their space. So go to menti.com. The code is 657780. Yes, we're going to have Easter. We're going to delay Easter. We want brass. No, Easter cannot wait. I'm on the fence, or both and. So let's see what happens here. Oh, we've got both and. A lot of both and. Ooh, I like it. I'm a both and person. Yes. Liking it. Great. Nice. I love this real-time kind of thing. You know I'm going to start using this in my workshops and presentations. So fun. There's a lot of different, like word cloud, and there's graphs, and there's pies, and there's all kinds of things. Yeah, it looks like both and is winning out. And no, Easter cannot wait is another. And I think we're on solid theological ground here, friends. Easter cannot wait. So let's talk about Easter season. All right. You heard me say Easter season, because Easter is an entire season. Sometimes we forget about that. We think there's Easter, and then there's some weeks, and then there's Pentecost. And actually, Easter through Pentecost is the Easter season. And so this is the good news for us, friends, because we need a whole lot of Easter right now. And so I really hope that you will consider not just thinking about what you're doing on Easter, but how you're going to have Easter through the entire season. And it may be that we get back to our churches within that season. It may be that we get back on Pentecost. We don't know what the future holds. So I am creating a series that is called Heart of the Matter, based on lectionary year A, which we're in, Revised Common Lectionary. So even if you're not following the lectionary, it doesn't matter. People wouldn't know that. So you could do it anyway. And what I'm assuming is I'm writing it as if we're doing worship at home for the entire season. But you know that if things start to lift, and I don't want them to lift too soon, I'm just going to say that. I think it's dangerous at any rate. Not going to go there. But I think it's really, really important for a good outcome, for us to be planning this and to get creative with it and get hopeful about it, about how people can stay connected all through the Easter season. And whenever we get back, so the both and thing is really awesome, because I think we can have an Easter message that also acknowledges, doesn't gloss over, but acknowledges the continued anxiety and depression, but that also helps us to have this continued liturgical rhythm that reminds us that every week is a little Easter, and certainly during the Easter season. So I want to share with you an excerpt, a couple of excerpts from a piece that a friend I was with recently at her church. She's a writer and a former journalist, and wrote this piece that will appear in a newspaper on Palm Sunday, but she gave me permission to share a little bit of it with you, just as inspiration. So it's called Will There Be Easter? Karen Clark Ristine. The very first message I received after announcing the decision to suspend in-person worship came from Nora, a high school student who serves in worship most Sundays, often carrying the cross into the sanctuary as worship begins. Do you think there will be Easter service still? I'm very upset about the absence of church and what is happening in our world right now, she said. I would be very upset if Easter was canceled. Yes, dear Nora, there will be Easter. Easter is alive in you right now. Easter comes alive in every human connection. Easter comes alive in all our senses, in our very being. The triumphant sounds of brass ensembles, the vibrant sight of Easter lilies in the sanctuary, the cross lifted high, the Christ candle lit to shine through the darkness. Easter lives in these shared experiences and memories. Memories of last Easter, memories of any Easter we've ever shared anywhere with anyone. Memories of that first Easter morning that we share in sacred story every year on Easter Sunday. Easter lives even in our longing now for these experiences. Easter celebrates new life that overcomes even our starkest moments. Easter calls us to hope in one another, to hope in a future we cannot yet see or imagine. Even in the midst of social distancing and sheltering in place, Easter lives in the new ways that we are learning to show love and care for one another. Easter is not canceled, and neither is church. The church is not a building. The church lives wherever people of faith, any faith, share in love and hope. The church lives in every social media post of beauty and words of encouragement. The church lives in every text and phone call made to keep connection alive. The church lives in new communications platforms like Zoom and old platforms like phone trees. The pews were empty when we suspended in-person worship on Sunday, but the church was alive. The people prayed and sang in their pajamas from home. We offered gratitude for one another, and we confessed our fears. And in the many ways we experience and express our faith, we heard a holy invitation to receive new hope. She goes on to talk about how various faith traditions and their holy days are also being affected, connecting us to all our siblings in faith. And then she goes on. And for those who practice no faith, for the spiritual but not religious, for the lapsed and the lingering, no one has canceled human kindness. For all of us, no one has canceled human kindness. Compassion and hope live now. Human kindness lives now. And so, dear Nora, there will be Easter. And so, my friends, my dear friends, there will be Easter. And so to help you with that, I started last week putting together this series, Heart of the Matter. Let me tell you what's there right now for you to download. And we are hoping and projecting, I'm going to work my little fingers to the bone this week after we get off this webinar, and I'm hoping to finish it by Friday. And so when you sign up for these materials, it means that we will be sending you the updates. Right now, you just have some samples. So you have the scriptures and synopses that I do for every one of my series to help you see what the message is, what the layout is, so you can see if this would be something that would resonate with your folks. I have an overview of it, so it's kind of a document where I talk about what it is, some of the things that we are highlighting, the activities and the interactivity with people at home, and the order of worship and how that's happening. I am giving you a sample script for a leader-led experience that you would do on Zoom or Facebook Live or what have you, with there's a leader doing the leading for people at home. But I am also creating another version of these scripts, and that is a completely self-led at-home version that people could do on their own at home. And so I want to acknowledge that this may be a reality for some people, that they can't get on technology, or that they can't, for whatever reason, they need to do it on their own. Or perhaps they're just doing it on the phone with somebody else, connecting with someone else, or maybe they want to do it with their families that are not part of your church, right? And they could do that with extended family. I have heard so many stories of people getting on Zoom with their extended family, and this has never happened before. And so our extended families are creating more connection. So it could be done just with extended family or friends. And so also in their Worship Design Studio associate, Shelley Walters, who is highly creative in involving all generations. We've brainstormed, and she is creating for us ways to help us know how to incorporate all the ages. And I don't mean just children or just youth, but we all need some playfulness in this time. And so there's some playful things to do that I think all ages, including adults, can do and enjoy. All right, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about the series. And again, by way of giving you these examples. It may spur you on. You may already have an Easter season series planned out, and this may just help you to imagine how you could make it more interactive and adapt it for the Easter season online. The scripture fragment that I have based the entire series on is from Acts 2, day by day. And this is just, this is Lent, Easter season, lectionary year A. And when you read the scriptures and synopsis, it's gonna blow your mind about how appropriate it is for our situation. Day by day, as they spent much time together in the temple, well, we're creating online temples, right? They broke bread and ate their food. They broke bread at home. Hello. And ate their food with glad and generous hearts, praising God and having the goodwill of all the people. And day by day, the Lord added to their number. Oh my gosh. Now, here's the thing. As I looked at, and when I create series, I look at all of the scriptures, and I don't look at them Sunday by Sunday. With the lectionary, I look at all of the Hebrew texts together, and then I look through all the Psalms, then I look through all of the epistles, and then I look through all of the Gospels. And in Easter season, we have all of the Acts. There's Acts scriptures as well. And what I noticed as I was looking for a thread through them, what was holding all of this together that could become that central theme, or what I call an anchor image, the word heart pops up over and over and over again in scriptures all through this season. And so heart, the heart of the matter, which I think is super appropriate for this time, because this is a time where we are asking ourselves, what's the most important thing in my life? And that's what crises do. And so the heart of the matter, the whole series will talk about what is the heart of the matter, and our hearts, our aching hearts, our breaking hearts, but also our glad and joyous hearts, because we know that we are not alone. All right, so the movement of the order of worship actually mirrors that scripture. It says they spent time together. And so the opening part is a fourfold structure. The opening part is called spend time. And so it starts in a more contemplative, meditative, deep breathing, heartbeat, settling in kind of thing, and uses this imagery of God, our heartbeat of all creation. And then it also invites us to have worry stones. And so we're thinking about things that people could just do at home, so that you at the church are not trying to make things and get them out to everybody. But if people can just find a stone at home and decorate it with paint, but also Sharpies, or just simple to really complex like we have here, create these heart worry stones that people can carry around in their pocket, but then bring them out for worship. And I have part of the liturgy that addresses bringing out these worry stones, praying, and then placing those near a candle that you might have on the table. This is a picture of a Christ candle. Not everybody's going to have that, but they could have a candle on the table. And what I love about this metaphor is it's kind of this rolling away of the stone, right? So the stone that closed up the tomb, that didn't let light in, is rolled away at Easter. The light comes into the tomb, but also the light comes out of the tomb. And so we can think about the tomb as womb for new possibility, as womb for new life and light. And so part of the liturgy is about that. And so part of the Easter liturgy, which I don't have done, which I will send to you all later, will be that imagery of rolling away the stone and taking those worry stones and blessing them for the Easter season. The second part is break bread, because they were breaking bread together in their homes, right? That's what that Acts scripture said. And so the whole idea is that each one of these services would be a meal. So people are gathered to do the service around their table. They have, everybody has helped to prepare a meal. And we put that early on because we don't want the food to get cold. So that first contemplative part is fairly short, centering, blessing, and then we have a blessing over the meal. If you're going to do communion liturgy, if you're a congregation that does communion every Sunday, you'll want to adapt what I have there to include more communion-like language. And again, every denomination treats that differently online, so you adapt as you need to. But we pray over the food, and then people start to eat as the scriptures and discussion happens. So this is a little bit of dinner church that has become popular. It's sort of a throwback to early agape meals. But that's the idea, is that this would happen around a meal for every Sunday. And I have this wonderful picture somebody took of doing online worship last week while they have their waffles, which, worship and waffles. Fabulous. Love that. Oh, and let me just say that the breaking bread portion is the meal, but it's also breaking open the scriptures, breaking open the word, breaking open our lives. So you might have a little mini sermon in there if it's pastor led. If it's not pastor led, I have some discussion questions in there and some things to think about around the scripture. So we open our lives and discussing, and then we break open our hearts with prayer. So that's kind of the breaking bread section. Praising God section is after we've done that, we've eaten, we've discussed, and then it's time for raising our endorphins. And like I said earlier, I'm choosing a different song every week that goes with the scriptures. So this is from the sample one that I have, which is the second Sunday after Easter, or the second Sunday of Easter. And it's Peace Train, Cat Stevens, right? And so I have the link, the YouTube link that people can click at their houses and listen to it there. All kosher, not illegal. And dance party, right? So whether you do it in your bed, your chair, all over the living room, it's time for the Easter season dance party. It's good for the endorphins. It's good for raising our body, minds, and spirits, our frequency, whatever you want to call it. And there's a repeat after me affirmation that sort of builds up the energy, and then the music begins. So you could adapt the songs if you wanted to and use different ones than the ones I'm using. Again, you have my permission to adapt as needed. And so the final movement of that Easter season series is have goodwill. That's what the Acts 2 scripture said, and they having the goodwill of all the people. And so in closing, we think about what can we do this week? What can we do beyond this, beyond us? And so the concluding question for further reflection after the benediction, which I have written out, is what messages does the world need? What can we do for the goodwill of all the people? And so we have some suggestions for different messages. Chalk out, send the kids out with chalk, or do it yourself. I mean, I'm going to be doing chalk messages because I love playing with chalk on the sidewalk. This picture is a little note that someone dropped off at the house that said, "We're teachers. We live on the corner of such and such. Here's our phone number. If you need anything, please call us, text us. We are going to run errands." So what is it that we can do? What do our healthcare workers need? What do we need? So that last part of the service is, how do we extend this Easter goodwill, joy, hope beyond our walls that's safe and works? And I love this picture that Shelley sent me that's in part of our resources of these kids that made these hearts hug, and they put construction paper arms, and people can imagine you can send them to people. I don't know about whether they're saying mail is a little dicey, like actually licking, and so maybe email or send texts of pictures like this would be a safer way to do it. But what I'm hoping is that those of you who are going to do the series, we always have a Facebook group page, where people who are doing the series can share ideas, and we can add tons of ideas in there and resource each other, crowdsourcing. I am a big believer that I am not the one with all the ideas. I just am the instigator of the beginning of the ideas, and then you all are able to fill that out and do what you want. Some of the things that I think for Easter is to think about, how can we take those beloved traditions and do them at home? So those of you who do flowering of the cross at the church, you in our suggestions, make a cross out of twigs during Holy Week, and then add flowers to them, whether they're real flowers from your yard or paper mache flowers or cutout flowers, construction paper cutout flowers, whatever it is. But decorating the cross be part of the Easter season. I think this is part of the both and, that we can do this. We can proclaim Easter. We can proclaim Christ is risen on the day of, and then we can just postpone the brass quartet that you had scheduled for the day when we get back. Hopefully we'll still be in Easter season, but no matter when we get back, just this both and I think is the way to go, because yes, Nora, there will be Easter. We cannot, I believe, postpone these messages of hope. So Easter is an entire season. So one of the things for this series that we're thinking is those eggs that you do, that instead of just doing eggs on Easter, you have some empty eggs, and then every week you have people in the family write thoughts that came to them as a result of the service or the scripture, and then put them inside eggs, and then collect the eggs over the Easter season in an Easter basket, keep adding to them. And then when you do get to come back to church, everybody can bring their Easter baskets and you can share with each other. If, God forbid, we are not back on, say, Pentecost, the end of the Easter season, maybe we can do that and share that online by opening those and sharing that with each other, or calling each other and sharing that with someone. But this is one way that we want to incorporate the Easter egg kind of thing, and have that be a whole season worth of Easter eggs rather than just that day. Oh, well, I hope that some of these ideas have spurred you to your own ideas, that they're helpful. Jenna, let's spend some time with Easter questions, and then we're going to call it good.
Got a question here. What about rituals for virtual palms on Palm Sunday? Any ideas about that?
Right. Well, I think, there are a lot of patterns out there on the internet that you can make your own construction paper palms, or get something. I am looking at a ton of palm trees right now because I'm in Palm Springs. Maybe I should just send palms to everybody. Or maybe if you already made that order of palms and they're going to come anyway, you haven't canceled them, maybe you can deliver them, or maybe you can have them for people to come and pick up. And then people can come on their cameras or take pictures of themselves and post them to your Facebook page. And then maybe you do that the week before Palm Sunday. Next week. Yes. Next week, you can have people take pictures of themselves with palms, and then you can put that together in a music video, right? With some music. Maybe the hymn that you usually sing on Palm Sunday. Yeah, go with leafy branches from your local setting. It's biblically appropriate. Yeah, exactly. It doesn't have to be palms. It can be whatever leaves, and have people take pictures and send them in. And so you can see the faces of people. Palm Sunday is not just about a fabulous parade that usually the children do. I'm a big believer in Palm Sunday being also paying attention to justice marches throughout the ages and what is right and just. And certainly we're still in the midst of that. I mean, the world hasn't stopped. There are things that we can decry and still continue to work, even though we're at home, and pay attention to. And I think it's really important to remember, especially on Palm Sunday, the things that we are working to make this world a better place. And there are certainly people who are far worse off than most of us in our homes. And so pictures of justice marches through the ages is something that I have often shown online, or not online, but in the space during a Palm Sunday parade. And so creating a collection of those, there's a place called Wikimedia. And Wikimedia are pictures of news photos that are free to use. So that's one place you can gather these up. But there's some very powerful things you can do, messages regarding Palm Sunday that you can do associated with the parades. Those of you doing my series, I always have, you have scripts for those series. You're going to be adapting them for our context, but I also think it's important, those of you doing worship series, and I call them worship series, not sermon series, because the whole of the worship, I'll just do a little educating here. What we preach in the worship design studio is one size does not fit all, and they're worship series, not sermon series. The music, every bit of the worship, the visuals, points toward that message. It's not just the sermon that carries that message through. And I think it's important to, again, keep that rhythm, keep within that series. Don't just drop everything. It is rare that you are doing something where the message can't be adapted and woven into our current situation. So There you go. What other questions, Jenna?
I think we've gotten to most of the big ones
Wow.
for now.
Awesome. Oh my gosh, friends, I am so excited for everything that you have shared that I have not read yet in the chat. Can't wait to see it. I know you've been resourcing each other while you've listened to me blather on. But I want to thank again the Practical Resources Center for co-sponsoring this with us, allowing us to use their platform. Also for all of the curating that they are doing of so many things beyond worship that they're curating on their Facebook group. And friends, I am so grateful again for what you are doing week in and week out and every day. I mean, plans change. There's plan A, then there's plan B, then there's plan C, depending on, all of these things that's happening day by day. So I want to send you blessings of peace and passion, but also sheltering in place and sheltering in peace, my friends. May you be mightily blessed in this time. Do not hesitate to reach out. And I am so honored to be in ministry with you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.